Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. What an honor, what a pleasure tonight to welcome back to my podcast and my radio show, Bob McCown, who needs no introduction. He's a gentleman that probably lots of you have listened to on the radio and on podcasts over the years, trying to get caught up on what's important in sports, particularly hockey for me, in Toronto and in Canada and in North America. He is a Mississauga resident. He's a great guy. He's got a lot of strong opinions, and so it's wonderful to have you with us, Bob McCown. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, we're into the second round. I got to ask you a little bit about the first round and a little bit about what you think's coming up. What happened to Toronto? What is it? 7 consecutive game sevens they've lost. What's going on?
Well, it's as one of my friends told me, once in 20 years they've been past the first round. That's pretty scary. Look, I've lived in Toronto most of my life, and there was a time when I was a Leaf fan. That kind of ended when I got into media, and so I can't say I'm a Leaf fan anymore. But I will say this: the playoffs ended for me after the Boston lost, because the Maple Leafs somehow, I'm not a fan of them, but they're the only thing I was really interested in. And well, it happened again. Like they just fell on their face. They simply are not a good organization right now. Now, whether Keith Pelly is able to change that or not, I do not know. But I worked with Keith for many years and for Keith for a number of years at Rogers. And I know his ability. The question in my mind is, will Keith, as the head of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, start doing what no other person in that position has done before, and that is stick his nose in one of the teams. Now, I'm told that when Keith got the job or took the job, he got the right to have all the presidents of the various sports teams report to him, and that's never happened before. So maybe we have something to look forward to. But he also has a friendship with Shanahan. And I think that's one of the guys that needs to be addressed. More specifically, I believe, fired. And whether that will happen or not, I really don't know. Keith is a very good friend and a loyal guy. And if he and Shanahan are close, I don't see him firing him.
So you, I think, were reasonably friendly with my former boss, Eugene Melnyk, and he was known for getting very involved in hockey decisions.
Yes.
Is it good or bad when an owner or a president gets involved in hockey decisions instead of leaving it up to the GM?
Well, generally it's bad. But remember that Melnyk was an owner, and Pelly is not an owner by any stretch. He is an employee. He is a higher ranking employee, but he is still an employee of the Maple Leafs. Of Bell and Rogers, the owners. I'm not sure that you can compare the two. I think they're two different positions to be in.
It's interesting because I worked on and off with the Ottawa Senators and Eugene Melnyk for 24 years. And not once did hockey report to the president or the chief operating officer. It always reported to the general manager and then directly to the owner. And the hired hands were never involved, other than the hired business people were never involved. And president after president disagreed with that.
Well, I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect that Pelly insisted that the presidents of the various teams report to him and not the board, which was the case before they hired Pelly. They did not report to the head of MLSE. So I think he made the change, or made them make the change. And the question is he really prepared to do something drastic about this team? And I do not know that.
And what do you mean by drastic? Are you thinking about a rebuild, or what do you think needs to get done?
Well, as I said the other day, Brian, on my podcast, if I was in charge, no, I'm not, but and a good thing for a lot of people. But I would clean house. I would literally start over. There's a lot of talk about the big four players and which one of them you would trade. Well, my answer to that is all of them. All.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm
No,
going to
I
take you
don't think
back
you could
to
do that, but I think I would shop all of them and see what the best deals are. If the deals are pretty good, then I would be prepared to move them all. Plus, I would get a new coach. Plus, I would get a new president. The only guy in upper management that would survive would be Treliving, who is the general manager and has only been in that position for 1 year. And I don't know for a fact, but I suspect that Treliving's decisions were reflective of Shanahan's decisions. In other words, Treliving had to get approval from Shanahan for just about everything he did. And I don't think should fire him yet. I don't think he's had a chance to do what has to be done. And that's what I believe has to be done. I don't think there's an alternative. I think you can go halfway. Now, John Shannon, my co-host on my podcast, implied that I am condemning the Leafs to 3 years of not making the playoffs. And that might be true. But I believe you have assets that you're going to trade here. And you're going to get decent players for them. Now, whether that diminishes the significance of the Maple Leafs in the next few years, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe, this is an organization, as I said before, that has made it to the second round of the playoffs once in 20 years.
once in 20 years.
Yep.
So I gotta ask you about a comparable, and it may not be truly comparable, but 2017 I think was the year that the Ottawa Senators made it to Game 7 and lost in the third round, and so
Right.
they missed getting into the Stanley Cup Finals by one goal in the seventh game, I believe it was,
Right.
and had a very similar kind of discussion, and Eugene Melnyk and the Ottawa Senators management came to the conclusion that they had to go through a rebuild. And Ottawa hated it, and they traded away. Actually, they didn't trade away. They allowed Erik Karlsson to be a free agent and move elsewhere. They didn't keep him, and the community rose up, went crazy. And Melnyk said something very similar. He said, "No, we're going to do a rebuild. It's going to be 3 years of allowing going for some rookies and allowing them to mature, and then we'll be back in it." And what is it? It's 7 years later. They haven't made it to the playoffs
I
since.
understand. And the late Eugene Melnick was a friend of mine. And we spent a fair bit of time together. And he used to call me in the middle of the night to ask me questions about his hockey team and about the game. And believe it or not, I sort of miss that. But I think Melnick's decision at that point that you're talking about had a fair bit to do with money. And the Ottawa Senators have lost money. You know that over the years. The Toronto Maple Leafs are cash rich. They make more than $100 million a year. And the notion that Maple Leaf fans will not pay exorbitant ticket prices or buy paraphernalia because the Leafs aren't in the playoffs is ridiculous.
They'll come anyway.
They will. They will come anyway. They'll spend anyway. So there's no economic decision to be made here. This is about winning, period. And I think the decision has to be made to retool. They have tried with this group of four superstars for 7 or 8 years and have achieved nothing. Nothing. You cannot call one first round win that came last year anything. It was a blip in the radar. Otherwise, they've lost in the first round or not made the playoffs every year. And you can't go to bed. You can't start again next year with that looming. Um, these guys, I got nothing against them. Individually, they appear to be good players, but this is a team that can't score more than 2 goals in the playoffs in any game. A team that is offensively oriented, one of the better scoring teams in the league. And year after year, they don't do anything in the playoffs. Why? Because their goaltending is bad, partly, but really it's because they don't score. And at some point, you have to hold everybody accountable. You, me, everybody. We react to the scenario we create. If we are successful at what we do, we are rewarded, or we expect to be rewarded. These are guys that have been rewarded. They all make $11 million or more. They make ample money. And what have they accomplished? You cannot talk about, these giving these guys another chance. They are they are well compensated, they are overly compensated, and they are forgiven by Toronto fans who are stupid. Stupid. And
The fans are stupid?
yes,
Why?
well, I made this announcement or proclaimment about 2 days ago, and the internet is full of people, Leaf fans, who think I'm crazy or egomaniacal or something. I'm not. They may not agree with me, but they think if you put on a Toronto Maple Leaf uniform, you are a god. If you walk down Yonge Street with a Leaf uniform on, people will react positively to you. And God love them for that, but they shouldn't be making decisions like that. They are not the ones who should be responsible for deciding what the future is. And Maple Leaf Sports has allowed that to happen. Maybe not intentionally, but the notion nobody is put pressure on this organization
Do you
in
think part of
years.
it? Do you think part of it is the institutional ownership? If you had a individual like a Eugene Melnick
Maybe,
or like a
maybe.
Larry Tannenbaum that was desperate to win and get his name on the cup, would that actually provide more of that passion for victory?
I think that's impossible to say because each individual owner is different. I loved Melnick, but I thought Melnick was crazy, and I told him
I
so.
worked for him.
Yeah, well then right? So he, in many ways, a wonderful guy, a good friend, and I hate saying anything negative about him, but his situation was difficult. It wasn't his fault, but the people in Ottawa hated Melnick because the team was not successful, right? And that's what happens in sports. If
Yeah,
your
not,
team
not
is
successful, but you put it in perspective versus Toronto, of a better record. I was on the team plane in, when was it, 2006, where we went to LA and lost regrettably. But we made it to Game 6 in the Stanley Cup Final,
yeah, I
and
know that.
it was a great game. And then, as I said, in 2017, made it to third round, one game, one goal short of making it into the Stanley Cup Final. That's not a bad record.
No, but ask a Toronto Maple Leaf fan if the Leafs are better than Ottawa historically, and they'll say yes unequivocally. They'll point to 7 or 8 years of playing the playoffs. They'll point to maybe the '60s. Who knows? But the truth is that Maple Leaf fans, excuse me, are not realistic, and they're not being honest with themselves.
I think they're too patient. I think they should be demanding better performance.
Agreed, 100% agreed.
I got to
That's
ask you
what I'm
what
saying.
I got to ask you one last question about the last round, if I could. I
Sure.
was at a really interesting speech by Luc Robitaille of LA Kings at one point in time. And he said, let's admit it, in baseball, if you don't have a pitcher that's pitching at the top of his game, you're not going to win the World Series. And in hockey, and if you in football, you don't have a quarterback that is the top quarterback, you're not going to win. And in hockey, if you don't have a goalie that is playing at the absolute top of his game, you're not going
There's
to win.
some truth in that. Yep. And there's some truth in that. Now, can you win a Stanley Cup without a great goaltender? Yes. It's been done. It's been done a few times. Is it much easier to have your goaltender stand on his head and be great and then win? Of course. We all know that. That's one of the problems the Leafs have had. They haven't had a good goaltender in a decade. They haven't had a great one in probably who was the last great one? I don't know. Ed Belfour, maybe. A long, long time.
Palmetier, no?
He was a good. Palmy is another pal. Good goaltender. I don't know about great.
I used to watch him. I think it was the Markham Waxers that he played for that I used to watch when I was
Yeah,
growing up.
yeah. Well, I used to play ball hockey with him on Sunday mornings. Now Palmy would never play goal in ball hockey. He didn't. I guess he didn't want to embarrass himself, but he would give us all kinds of nonsense about why he wouldn't play goal. He had to be a forward. Anyway, he was a good goaltender. Good goaltender. Great. I don't know about that. I'm not so sure.
I was impressed with Domi in this round.
He is an ordinary hockey player. He played on a team of subordinary people. So he looked pretty good. Now, if Domi was a great player, he would have been great at some point during his NHL career. But how many teams have given up on him? How many? I think he's played for a bunch of teams. I'm not sure Domi, he's a fine player, but he's a third line center. That's what he is, period. The
And you
Leafs,
think
though, have a
and you
whole
think
bunch.
that you seriously think the top four should all be traded away?
I think you should shop all of them. Yep. And
Well,
the deal becomes then what are you going to get for them?
you want to get those draft picks.
Maybe. Or you want to get a couple of good defensemen, which they've longed for years and have done nothing about. Um, you know, when we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, we always think about the same thing: defense. We don't think about high scoring. The days of Gretzky and the Oilers are long gone. Generally speaking, it's about goaltending and defensemen. And the Maple Leafs have done nothing positive about those two things, including the former general manager who initiated this big four idea. They're all forwards, right?
Yep.
So what does that tell you?
Well, we got to take a break for some messages and come back and maybe talk a little bit about Edmonton and the second round and see what you think about the strategies there and what you think is going to happen. We're going to take a break. Everyone back in 2 minutes with Bob McCown. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I'm chatting tonight with Bob McCown, obviously a sports commentator of note that all of us have, if not heard of, probably listened to night after night after night, either on the radio or on his podcast. And I used to always check in to see what I should be thinking about before I went to a bar or a game or something or other, and got to be able to quote you. I used to have to take people to the owner's box at the Ottawa Senators quite a bit, and they always wanted to talk a little hockey, even if they were bankers or
Sure,
potential
of course.
tenants
Yeah.
or whatnot. And so I needed to make sure that not only did I read the sports pages, but that I listened to a little bit of you, so that I could make some good pithy comments as all these different bankers in suits wanted to come by the owner's box and see the game. One of the things that people have talked about is, can a star make a team? And we've got the star in Edmonton, and I was in Edmonton this year, and I think the game I saw was number 13 or 17 or something like that in a row. It was an incredible
Oh yeah, the run. Yep.
the run that they had, and that the city is going crazy on fire, and to see that run, but also see the offensive powerhouse that McDavid is really quite impressive. I I worked in Los Angeles in the late 80s when Wayne Gretzky was traded to LA Kings. And the team wasn't great, but he was unbelievable. And they did so well. It was just fascinating to watch how one player can change everything. Maybe not take you to the Stanley Cup, but can change everything. What do you think is going to happen with Vancouver versus Edmonton in this round?
Well, I will. I haven't seen a lot of Edmonton play. I haven't seen a lot of Vancouver at all. But I guess I have to go with the consensus, which seems to be that Edmonton is a better team. And I don't disagree with that. But I'm not sure that one guy makes any kind of difference. There's a guy that scored 69 goals in the NHL this year, the most of any player. He plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They went out in the first round. And how many goals did he score in the playoffs? Did he get one? I don't even know. Maybe one. So the playoffs are a completely different animal. It is more of a team thing. It's a mental thing. I get that, an emotional thing. But your entire team has to play well in order to be successful. And I think Edmonton has a very good nucleus. They haven't done it. And at this point, they kind of remind me of the San Jose Sharks of the last decade. Every year, every expert picked San Jose, year after year after year. How many cups did they win? None. And that's the problem I see with Edmonton. There are times in the last 5 years or so where Edmonton has looked pretty good. Maybe not as good as this year, but pretty good. And they have yet to accomplish anything. So I am suspect of their ability long term. But talent wise, I think they should beat Vancouver.
Have you been in the arena?
No, I haven't. I've been
I,
to Edmonton in
I
my
gotta
life, believe it or not. In my life, I've never been to Edmonton.
I got to tell you, it's a gorgeous arena. Being
I'm
a
told that.
fan is a pleasure. The chairman's club and the boxes down at the bottom are incredible, but they've got this mezzanine that goes around the whole rink, and you sit at bar stools and little long tables, and everyone walks around and meets everyone. It's a great networking spot. It's a great place to trade stories. It's a great place to have a drink. It is of of all the buildings I've been in a bunch of buildings around the NHL. It is by far the nicest building.
Mr. Shannon goes to Edmonton a lot, and he's been in the arena a fair bit, and he's told me that. He loves that arena too. I've never been to Edmonton, so I'm sorry to say I haven't seen it, but
Well,
maybe one day.
we should take a road trip sometime. Okay, so what about Florida and Boston? Florida seems almost unbeatable right now. Um, incredible, incredible team. And I thought Boston was going to lose. And they squeaked it through in the end. Obviously, what do you think is going to happen in that matchup?
Well, Boston has wins game one against them, and they won quite comfortably.
Yep,
That I must say that shocked me.
it did.
I really thought Florida would win easily, but it's the playoffs. Hot goaltending, and Florida won their first series quite easily and had a rest, and quite often that's not a good sign.
A rest is not a good sign.
No, they rested too long. I don't know how long it was. It was a week, but that often screws up a hockey team. So I still think Florida's a better team. I know they are, and my guess is that I would make them now favorite for the Stanley Cup.
You think Florida is the favorite right now for the Stanley
Yeah,
Cup?
I would. Yeah,
So
I
with all
would.
the
I would be scared of. I would have been scared of Las Vegas because they did it last year and they know how to do it. But they got beat by Dallas in 7 games, so they're out. Dallas is a very good team, but I think Florida is a better team overall. Now, that means nothing, of course, because these are just predictions and none of us really know anything. So,
So I got to tell you, as you I think know, I'm been on the business side of hockey, and so I've traveled around and visited a bunch of the arenas. You're the guy that knows the hockey side of things. I know the business side of the hockey a little bit, and Dallas's arena is also spectacular. Rebuilt right downtown, rejuvenated that whole part of downtown Dallas. It's another beautiful arena as well.
have you been to Vegas?
I haven't been to Vegas. I really want to go see Vegas.
Oh, it's fantastic. I was there many times in the first year.
Yep.
Yep.
I want to see
And
that, and I want to go see a concert, and go see you too. As we were chatting the other day,
yeah,
I haven't seen you two in a long time, other than at a party you put on with a U2 cover band that was a lot of fun.
my ex-wife is a huge U2 fan. So I spent 20 years with her. And of those, I probably saw a U2 concert or two every year for 20 years. So you want to talk U2? I can talk
You could
U2.
talk U2. Well, yeah, that
Yeah.
U2 cover band was a lot of fun. I got to tell you. So, with all the hockey on the TV, what series are you going to be watching?
None.
None.
None. As I said at the beginning, because I've lived in Toronto almost all my life, I know that watching the Toronto Maple Leafs is something I have to do, whether I want to or not. But once the Leafs are done, I have no responsibility elsewhere. Now, I lived in Vegas for 7 years, and I became a fan of the Golden Knights from a distance. And good friends of mine work for the team. The president of the team is a very, very close friend of mine. And so he's got me tickets and invited me to come down on numerous occasions to see them play. So I'm fond of them, but they're out too. So there's nobody left that I'm really interested in. So I probably have seen my last, well, I can guarantee you, I've seen my last full hockey game for the year.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, I'll have to twist your arm and offer
No,
you a beer and some wings, and we'll go out to the pump and watch it on the screen at the
no,
pump.
sir. Won't happen. I'm not interested. I might watch 5 minutes here or there. You know, if I flip on the TV and I catch an interesting late third period, I'll probably stick around.
I have to admit, I watch more third periods than
Yeah.
full games. I have to admit
Yeah.
that. But then I also watch more fourth quarters than full games in basketball too. So
Yeah. Mind you, I would have said, I'll watch a Blue Jay game before a hockey game. But the way the Blue Jays have played most of this year, I'm not sure about that.
well, I want to take a break and then come back and ask you a little bit about sports and sports teams and arenas and how they can change cities. And I think it's something that you've thought about, planned for, and have a fair amount of knowledge about. So we're going to take a break and come back in 2 minutes with Bob McCown talking not hockey per se in regards to the players, but a little bit in regards to what it can do for a city. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. It's a real pleasure for me to chat with Bob McCown. Bob, you're a resident of Mississauga, are you not?
Right. Yep. I moved back here about, when I got divorced 4 years ago.
And you spent some time in Lorne Park before that.
Yes, I did. Yep.
I don't think a lot of people realize that you've got such a connection to Mississauga.
Well, I don't advertise it. And for a long time, I didn't. I lived in Bridle Path in Toronto. So my relationship with Mississauga was past. And now I'm back and
Well,
happy to be here.
we're happy to have you back.
Thank you.
So, we had this conversation the other day when we had a drink that sports teams and sports arenas, or if not sports teams and sports arenas, other sort of major entertainment facilities can really change a city. And I gave you the example of the work that I was doing with Eugene Melnick in regards to trying to bring a team to downtown Ottawa at Le Breton Flats.
Yep.
Obviously, Scotiabank Arena, Air Canada Center, whatever you want to call it, transformed the area south of Union Station. I spent a fair amount of time in Tampa Bay, and the arena in Tampa Bay, another spectacular arena, has completely transformed downtown Tampa and the waterfront area. There, Rogers Place, Edmonton, has moved downtown Edmonton to a different area, the Ice District, and grown, 17 acres of new office and retail and restaurants and
Right.
hotels.
Well,
It's
that's what
spectacular.
happens now, right? People don't just build arenas and stadiums, they build an entire area. It's happening in all sports. Los Angeles football stadium is in the midst of a tremendous boom in residential area and business area. Edmonton, same thing. All kinds of buildings are built around them. So it is a more of a focus on the revitalization of the area than it ever has been.
Do you think it makes economic sense? You know, that the LA one, I was told, is a $5 billion investment. Rogers Place,
Just the stadium is 5 billion.
really, the stadium
Just
alone
the
was 5 billion.
stadium in LA, the stadium itself cost 5 billion.
So the Rogers Place in Edmonton was, I think, 780 million Canadian, and that
Yeah,
was numerous years ago. So obviously that price tag has gone up, and the city and the province paid 50% of the cost. And the debate in Calgary has been whether you build a downtown arena, and it's interesting because as you undoubtedly know, the Stampede is not downtown, but it's pretty damn close to downtown. It's just out
right.
of downtown, and they were going to build this new arena half a block closer. So it wasn't a major change to where it was going to be. And they turned it down. At least the prior mayor turned it down when it was actually the mayor offered 30%, and the team was asking for a 50% contribution, and that's where the back and forth went. Do you think it makes any sense for these municipalities to contribute 50% of the
Well,
cost of
I
an
don't
arena?
know really what the general economic situation is between the city and the team. But I do know, as I said, that you no longer anywhere do you just build an arena or a stadium. You build a whole bunch of infrastructure. And that has a much, much bigger economic benefit to the owners of that area. You mentioned downtown Toronto, all the buildings that have popped up around the arena. Well, many of those buildings, much of the land is or was owned by MLSE. They have made, I would say, hundreds of millions of dollars on the economics outside the arena. The arena itself is pretty simple to do economics on. How many seats do you sell? What does it cost to run it, et cetera, et cetera. But
That said,
when you get into the potential ongoing taxation of, say, I don't know, 1,000 condos that are built right outside the arena, now you're talking about economic reality for the city itself. And I can only guess that there is incentive. There's more reason for a city to contribute to that than there was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
well, I'll give you some of the math. Le Breton Flats,
Yeah.
53 acres, so it was sizable. What we did is a economic analysis of the incremental property taxes that the city of Ottawa would have earned because of the development in that area. And it net present valued, so it would be greater over time, but brought back into today's dollars was $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
$1.5 billion. And the request to the city was that they would build or contribute over time to the construction cost of half of a stadium that would have been about 400 to $500 million. The stadium would have cost 800 to maybe $1 billion. Made a ton of economic sense. It would have completely rejuvenated the whole area.
That's what
And
I'm saying, right? Yep. And it's hard to see why a city wouldn't go for it. On the other hand, um, the a sports team is a private enterprise. And in general, I am suspect of gifting private enterprise anything. I'm not absolutely negative on it, but I am suspect. And I understand that there are political people who will not do that under any circumstance. But principally, it's because they don't take the time to do their homework.
I don't think they understand the economics. It's an economic
Right. I
investment,
agree with
just
you. I
like
agree.
helping out a battery plant come to town. Do you think there'll
Exactly.
ever be another NHL hockey team anywhere in Southern Ontario?
Um, my guess, I've been down this road before. You know that.
Yep.
Um, I've been involved. I was involved with a gentleman who was a former owner of the NHL, a former owner of several high profile sports teams, not just NHL. And we had an idea that we presented that was um, a huge idea. It involved a new stadium for the Blue Jays, um, another NHL team, and a football stadium. So they're all in one location, generally speaking. And the biggest problem, well, I mean, the league is a big problem. Why they don't want a second team here is beyond me. I don't know. But the Maple Leafs do have some rights within the area, and they are not inclined to let anybody else in. Now, will they go to the wall to prevent it? I don't know. And we never got far enough, to be honest with you, in our bid to find out whether they would allow us to be in. But the league has at least some say in it. And Bettman, for whatever reason, is not inclined to bring another team to Toronto. My position is a second team in Toronto is by far the best economic expansion the NHL could make. There is no city. They're going down to Salt Lake City, right?
Yep.
And that may be fine. I don't know. A second team in Toronto would be the second or third best team in the league economically. I suppose you would categorize the Rangers and the Maple Leafs as 1, 2. This would be no worse than third, the second team in Toronto or the Toronto area. And I don't just think that. I feel like I know that. I've done enough work on it over the years that I think there is oodles of evidence to support that. And anybody who says that's not true is wrong.
Well, I happen to agree with you. I think that another team, New York's got three, LA's got two. There's no reason why. And Toronto is the fourth largest city in North America today. Mexico, LA, New York, and then Toronto. We're going to be
And
10
by
million
far the
people.
number one hockey
No
city
question.
in North America. By far. Right.
And you take a look at, and it is a slightly different market, but you take a look at the support that we get to basketball as well as hockey. There are people that want to go and pay big bucks to go watch sporting
Yep.
entertainment, and I
Yep.
do think that it would completely rejuvenate whatever area an arena would be put in. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it would be challenging in that you wouldn't get the same concert business. I don't think people would bring concerts to both downtown Toronto as well as wherever else it would be in Southern Ontario. That would be a challenge. And I think that the economics are far worse when you only have one team. And so therefore, obviously, MLSE with both the Raptors and the Leafs get the benefits of twice as many home games as you would. But I still think it makes a ton of economic sense.
It does. Well, you build an arena, first of all, 20,000 seat arena. But then what do you build around the outside? Where is the additional revenue coming from? And it doesn't have to be hockey related. And it doesn't have to be arena related. There are many other things that can be done. A community like Mississauga should be looking at this, I think. Markham looked at it. Now, that deal fell apart. We looked at it in Northern Toronto. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you honestly, we were going to put the stadiums on the downstream lands, and those were lands that were available. That were essentially unused, and the population center of Toronto. Do you know where it is?
It's north. It's not down by the Scotiabank Arena.
Yorkdale. Yorkdale. Now you know where Downsview is, right?
It's across the
Downsview
street.
is about a half a mile north of Yorkdale. You can see Yorkdale from Downsview. So we were going to put this amazing, expansive place. And I mean, there would have been office buildings and shopping and residential. There would have been 50,000 people that would have lived on the land. Moishe Safdie, who was a very, very famous architect, was involved with us and did we sat and had lunch one day and he was scribbling on a napkin. And the stuff that he scribbled, I wish I still had it. It was phenomenal. But he said he thought it was economically the best, most intriguing project he'd ever worked on. So, here's a guy who's 100 times smarter than I am in this arena. And he recognized how good this could be, how big it could be. And if a city like Mississauga put its effort to this, I'm not sure it could get done, but I think there's a good chance. You'd have to get the approval of the Maple Leafs, but I think they probably would be more inclined to approve something in Mississauga than in Northern Toronto. That's my guess.
I agree with you. I think that there's a couple of keys. Number one, you got to have the land, and the land can't be just enough land for a building. It's got to be land for the building and the peripheral development that you talked about. And
Right.
it's got to be close to an urban area such that it can't be just suburban. And as you know, there's only two suburban arenas left in the NHL. The third last one was Arizona, and it's now going to Salt Lake City. Florida and Ottawa are the only other two that are in a suburban location. All the others have now relocated into a downtown location. So you got to have an urban environment that allows the construction of things that, are going to be a condominium and a hotel, restaurants,
Right.
urban entertainment, etc. And you've got to have transit. You can't have everyone coming by way of car. And so therefore you got to be either on a subway line or a GO line. And so that limits your areas. But I think with those, assets, if you had them, and I think there are a couple of places that have them. And I do think that the team can't be owned by the municipality. It's got to be owned by some rich guy.
I agree.
So you need to find the owner. But the building can either be owned by the owner or it can be owned by the municipality. And the municipality's got to put up big bucks. But I believe that it actually makes, and it could be shown fairly clearly to make economic sense. Anyway, nice to dream. But I also think there's other things. And it doesn't have to be just arenas. It's retail entertainment. It's that there are things that people want to go to, opera houses, living arts centers, concert halls,
of course,
retail entertainment like St. Lawrence Market or Granville Market or things like that, that really attract people, that provide the fun of a city, the soul of a city, the place where
but
you want
to. Don't you think you should incorporate all that into your arena plan?
Yes, I do.
Right.
I agree.
Don't make them separate entities. Make it all part of one big plan. Big is good.
Be spectacular. We should work on it. We're going to take a break for some final messages and then come back with some concluding comments in just 2 minutes with Bob McCown. Interesting conversation tonight. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Bob McCown is my guest. He's a sports columnist, commentator, hockey god that we all know and love and have listened to.
Hockey god, I'm not. I'm not Crombie.
You're my hockey god.
Whether you're mayor of Mississauga or not, I am not a hockey god.
Well, you're the guy.
By the way, I wish you good luck in the election upcoming.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I was excited to hear that you were running for it. I'm a little surprised because, of course, you'll take a big pay cut.
I will.
But that's what we all do when we find something worthwhile, right?
I'm passionate about it. I want to make
I
I
know
want to
you
make a
are very
difference.
passionate about it. And I should tell the people, you are not a guy. Um, I've known you for several years. We are not real close friends, but we're friendly. I have never seen Brian as excited about any possibility as this. And um, unfortunately, I am an American citizen. And so I am not allowed, I don't think, to vote, unfortunately. But were I allowed to vote, you would get my vote.
It's so kind of
So
you.
there.
You can put my sign up on your lawn.
100%. Bring it over.
Fantastic. What do you think makes a good mayor, Bob?
Um, that's a good question. The mayor of Las Vegas, when I lived in Vegas, I used to be there 4 months a year, and I would rent my house out the other 7 or 8 months. And Jan Lafferty Jones was the mayor of Vegas at that time, and she rented my house. So I got to talk to her a bit about being a mayor. And she was a bit of a hard ass, but she always said, listen to people, listen to what they have to say. And I don't know whether that was because it was a good idea to be a mayor who listened or whether that was the way you got reelected. But either way, I think that's good advice. I wouldn't give you that advice. I'm not sure whether you take it or not, but that was her advice. And I remember that very distinctly because we sat in my living room on a few occasions and talked about things like that.
Yep.
And Jan was very pro think big, don't think small. And look at what's happened in Las Vegas.
It's been incredible.
Yeah. Fastest growing city in America for 15 straight years. They have over 2 million people now in Vegas. When I lived there, the most they had was 600,000. When I moved there, they had 60,000 people. And now it's over 2 million. So um, I know population isn't everything, but you don't get to be bigger unless you're better. And you get better by being um, more progressive. Do more things and do big things. Don't do a whole bunch of small things because that's what most cities do. I guess because it's safe. Do big stuff. Do stuff that's risky, perhaps. And I hope you are elected, and I hope you take my philosophy.
Bob McCown, thanks very much. I agree with it. Listening, I think, is key. That's what I've been doing with my podcast. I listen to people over
I know
1,500
that.
interviews, and it's an incredible opportunity. I was chair of the Mississauga City Summit, and that was all about listening. That's something I'm all about. So I agree with that completely. And I do think that we've lost some of that vision. Hazen McCallion, she built the Hershey Center, which isn't as big as an NHL arena, but it was a big thing. And she built the Living Arts Center, and she built downtown. And one of the biggest decisions she made was to have no height limit in the Square One area. And because of that, we had starchitects that wanted to come in and build great, wonderful buildings. And I think it's that that attitude. I honestly believe the Olympic game strategy that we had about own the podium, I think said
Right.
it all. I think the my favorite president of all time, President Bartlett, always used to say, "Winners want the ball." And I think that that's the idea of you want to go
I'm
big and you
with
want to
you.
be progressive.
Yep, I'm with you.
Bob
Think
McCown,
big.
thanks so
Yep.
much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate you having me on.
That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videos are on my website, briancrombie.com. And if you want to check out my political stuff, it's on my political website, which is briancrombie.ca. Thanks. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Bob.